So we always said right up from 2016, right up until again the big Brexit day itself, that there were going to be some very significant consequences, mostly for medium to smaller businesses. Most of the large firms, again, they will have their problems as well with Brexit, but they will have the money and, more importantly, the capacity to be able to deal with most of these Brexit problems. Not that it will not add a cost to their businesses, which again will be passed on to their customers ultimately. But these small to medium businesses are now in what do we do? Brexit this year is set to fully now set in with all sorts of raft of customs checks now that have been very long time kicked down the road because the government just refuses to deal with them, from um, making sure that the ports have the correct infrastructure to a position where we are in now of, if you need a customs check, you would roll off, you would get your warrant, go about what 25 miles away from the port, and well, what happens in between then and getting checked is who knows, but essentially it has created a smuggler's absolute paradise zone where anything could come off or go onto those lorries between off going off the port into the UK to driving to the customs checking stations in the UK. It's absolute madness, but that's where we are. But we've done a couple of stories and we've been following this for quite a while now, how the wine industry is set to quite easily take one of the biggest hits post Brexit. So let's have a look in the Financial Times today to see how they are dealing with this. So before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a monetization link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So, there we go. So this comes from the Financial Times. The title is "The Post-Brexit Alcohol Duty Changes Are Unworkable, Say UK Wine Merchants." It was billed by the UK's Chancellor Rishi Sunak, shall we say, as the most radical simplification of alcohol duties in over 140 years, enabled by Britain's departure from the EU. But for the wine industry, the changes to the alcoholic taxation announced in the last autumn's budget are due to come in effect in February of 2023 look like a complete nightmare in the making. It compounds the bureaucratic headaches that importers are already experiencing as a result of Brexit. Under the EU rules that still apply, wine and fortified wines are taxed under 3 brands. The other higher bracket for sparkling wine under Sunak's proposals, there will be at least 27 different rates for wines on a rising scale that moves with each half a percentage points increased in alcohol volume. Wine traders, should we say, are calling it a sunshine tax, as the strength of wine, unlike beer and spirits, is determined by climate. This means that the stronger wines from hotter countries like Australia will be penalised, while some of the lower alcoholic wines from Germany, for example, will attract less tax. The complexity of these changes, say people in the wine trade, will increase the administrative costs, drive up prices for consumers, and reduce the range of wines available in the UK. The Tory party is meant to be on the side of reducing bureaucracy and increasing operational efficiency. This is going to do the exact opposite, said Ed Barker, the managing director of Kingsland Drinks, which imports wines and spirits in bulk and bottles for them for supermarkets and other outlets outside of Manchester. The all-party parliamentary group on wines and spirit has come to a similar conclusion. In the report produced in collaborations with the Wine and Spirits Trade Association, due to be published next week, the report was intended to look at the impact of not only COVID-19 and Brexit on SMEs in the alcohol trade, but was adapted into the bigger account processing changes to the duty regime. In response to the government proposals, the UK wine and spirit SMEs have been unequivocally saying the measures fail to meet its own objectives and to bring fairer and easier to implement, the report says. The WTOS estimates that the changes will bring an extra 250 million to the exchequer for wine, which became the most widely consumed alcoholic product in the UK during the pandemic. But additional reserves to the exchequer will only be offset by the fall in duties on beer and wine. The association says that about 80% of all wine consumed in the UK is above the threshold of 11.5% alcohol content, where duty increases. There isn't a lot of winemakers can do about this because you can't control the ABV, the alcohol by volume, in the agricultural product. But it is the sun that dictates how sweet the grape is and how the sugar that dilates it, the ABV, said Lucy Palton, the WTS Director of Communications. Wine importers say that the new rules meant by the ABV will be to need to be consistently evaluated across thousands of labels, even across different vintages of the very same wines, which can indeed vary in strength from season to season. It will make pricing time-consuming and moving target completely each year, which will involve very significant investments in personnel and IT. In this post-Brexit world where better regulation is a big sale, it would be very hard to try and design a system any more complex, says Steve Fallon, the chief executive of over the 170,000 wine society members of the world's oldest wine clubs. The importers of Australian wine are very particularly incensed. Tim Curtis, the corporate director of Direct Wines, one of the largest online wine merchants, has welcomed the elimination of the premium tax on sparkling wines, which will benefit English vineyards. But, he said, for Australian producers, the increasingly duty massively now outweighs any benefit from the free trade agreement signed by the UK back in December. Oh my word! So this Rishi Sunak doing this, the Australian free trade deal, which was made a big song and dance about how fantastic it is, this move now wipes out any benefit that Australian wine producers had of the free trade agreement. Wow. Out of 93% of our Australian wines would have a duty increase, he said. They have a 9% a bottle increase on the free trade agreement, but a 15% on Shiraz from the Barossa Valley would pay you at least 68% more on the duty, having saved that 9 pence. Wine merchants fear that there will be an increase in fraud as a result of the changes, with some producers just mislabeling alcohol content to try and attract lower taxes or even diluting their wine, a prospect that horrifies connoisseurs. Daniel Lambert, the wine merchant based in Wales, described the new regime as completely unworkable and said the additional compliance costs with the new rules would see smaller independent companies just completely pushed out of the market. The niche importer who is shipping a pallet from here and a pallet there from bringing in interesting products, they will just not be able to cope, he said. The government closed the formal consultations on the reforms at the end of January. It defends the charges, arguing that wine producers have to report the ABV for labelling purposes and the movement rates of all wines into one band. We are not creating 27 bands for all wines with the ABV between 8.5% and 22%. There will be one band based on alcohol content, said the Treasury. Our reforms will replace the outdated rules with common sense approach, not by, according to the winemakers, that puts taxations on stronger beers and wines and spirits on an equal footing. Making lighter and sparkling wines far more affordable to UK drinkers. This comes at the top of freezes of alcohol duty for the last three budgets, saving customers around 7.5 billion in total, the Treasury said. Again, considering you've just had all those quotes there from winemakers, and I want to heavily, again, focus on that part in particular, the fact that any now benefit that wine producers from Australia had from the free trade agreement have literally been all but wiped out. And again, we like to think that we have got, smart people in charge of this country, but stuff like this happens on a daily basis with Brexit and all these other things that are going to happen, and it's laughable. It really is laughable, but that's Brexit in a nutshell. Rishi Sunak literally wiping away any progress that Liz Truss or even Trevelyan made with trying to sign that free trade agreement. And even again, the benefits of that free trade agreement with Australia were incredibly questionable to begin with. But the fact that you have now completely wiped out what was a massive plus for the Australian wine producers, well, I think Australia may indeed come back to that. Because if you don't think that they're going to say, by the way, you've done this law, what's up with that? You don't think they're going to hit back with something else that's going to far more hurt us than anything else? I think they might very well do. This is how most modern trade agreements now work. And whoopsie doopsie, guys, you've really gone and put your foot in it. And I would not be surprised if we get to see, probably in like maybe a couple of months' time, especially in February when this really comes into effect. Australia hit back at the UK for this tax on now Australian wines. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.